So you come from Seattle. I'm here in Stockholm, Sweden. We have these sort of similar climates. It is rainy. It is kind of dreary. It's a little bit kind of dark. And do you think that inspires some of the music throughout the years that you've written?
Absolutely, because you look at you look at that parallel on the globe, and it's not terribly far away from Liverpool in northern England, and uh, yeah, in the drearier weather, you're stuck in the house a lot of the time, and you're just off in this cloud of bliss, listening to the Beatles or whoever you're into.
Of course.
Yeah, and then boy, the inspiration just kicks in and takes over. And me personally, I learned all these guitar parts from these guys, and then when I discovered Eric Clapton and Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck, that was it. That triumvirate of guys was just, they were it to me. And
But I've always heard a rumor that because you do have this cool symbiotic relationship with Jimmy Page, but you'd never really learned you were using a bow and sort of a theremin. And for those of you guys that know what a theremin is, I'll just go yeah, exactly. That's the international sort of definition of theremin. But you were using those I wouldn't say tricks, but you were using those sort of tools. Yeah. You were using those tools before you heard of Jimmy Page, or did he inspire that?
No, before I knew he existed, I had gone down to the local music store and bought those two items. And yeah, and then when he came out with that stuff, I thought, damn, he beat me to it, Yeah.
But it's 63, and you and your brother, because your brother does come very instrumental in your career. He's helped out, and been a big part of Heart. And of course, I call it that golden era of Heart, as well as all these future projects that you've done throughout the years. So, you and your brother, how did you find the sisters, or how did they find you?
Well, let me preface that with just a little bit of background on my brother and I.
Cool.
So we started getting into rock and roll, and we just lived and breathed it. We loved it so much. And I remember he was telling me one day, I think I was probably 15 in 65, we could make a wireless guitar transmitter for you, and you could walk around the house and hear it on the radio, through the radio. And so he did. He went to Radio Shack and bought all the parts, and I had a wireless guitar transmitter before they were invented, And then like a year later, or a couple of years later, we had a quadraphonic PA system that my brother built. And so it's always been he and I doing this stuff together.
You guys are actually like entrepreneurs, inventors. It's like, because those types of things changed rock and roll. I mean, maybe quadraphonic might have been sort of like, I don't know, 3D glasses for TVs. Maybe people talked a lot about it, but I don't know anybody that really actually used it all the time. But wireless radio transmitters with your guitar, come on. That's changed it.
Yeah, it was really cool. So,
and you've always done that with your guitars, your amps. You've always had a lot of these tools and tinkered a lot with stuff. And I know that I do go deep down the rabbit hole sometimes, and maybe I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but when I do my research on these things, but I want to find about this. Did the Jet City amp, did that ever come out, the Roger Fisher? Because it was an amazing idea, because you were one of the first people to actually have this idea that a amp could be like a studio monitor and be facing back up at you. And
right. Yeah.
What is the Jet City amp about? And Vic, do you have a picture of that?
No, he doesn't. Geez, if I would have known, I could have given you some pictures. I had a a little company that was making guitar speaker boxes for a while that sit flat on the front of the stage with a speaker pointing up and then a face aiming back. So there's no signal aimed at the audience.
Like a vocal monitor.
Yeah, except that this one you could stand on and have that sound coming right up at your guitar for feedback and sustain. It worked really, really well. And then years later, Jet City wanted to partner up and do something. So I suggested this amp that sits on the front of the stage aiming back, which is the way it should be. Yeah. But there's so many innovations. And the reason that my brother and I are innovative is because in 1955, my dad was a carpenter and started schlepping all these spare things from work all the time, you know, used lumber, used nails, anything that he could get. And we bought a little piece of property northeast of Seattle. And our family built our house. And so that was the kind of spirit in which we were raised. And so it was just natural for us to just think, oh, rock and roll, guitars. I want my own instrument, you know, and that kind of way of thinking.
Oh, there's a Jet City amp, but that's not the Roger Fisher model, but that he's been talking about.
Well,
and I'm just wondering.
Let me run off, and I'm just going to grab a guitar. I'll be right back. Hang on.
All right, folks. I'll go full screen then. I love it. We're sitting here with Roger Fisher, founding member of the band Heart, Hall of Fame Heart. And you know, my favorite thing about Roger's, I actually met Roger a few years ago. We were doing a charity show. First, we did one here in Stockholm. It was a John Lennon tribute. Our late great friend, Jack Middleman, was organizing it all. And then we did one that was in Seattle. And then we actually got to hang out more. I got to find a little bit more about him. But you got to understand, folks, this is like one of those guys that writes those guitar riffs. I mean, you know, Barracuda, the song Barracuda? Yeah, that's him. And I want to ask him about the flanger, and I want to ask him about all that stuff. Also, of course, the first album from Heart, which is Dreamboat Annie, came out in '76. That had Crazy on You. There you go. There's a great shot of that, Vic. But that riff, down, 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 I'll bet you my bottom dollar that's a Roger Fisher riff right there. And maybe he'll come up and play. Now he's back. Look at that.
You know, I can't find my learned guitar. It's the world's coolest guitar. It's got a titanium fretboard. I don't know.
Wow.
Why is
some people have titanium legs, and you have a titanium fretboard. I love it.
Well, on the subject of those songs that you mentioned, if I was a fan watching this, I would want to hear Raj play a little bit. So. Right. But there's
Sounds
always
great.
Well, this is a Floyd Rose guitar.
Okay.
Really cool guitar.
You know what's great is that the American bald eagle it's completely calm around your music because it's just standing there very, very
Well, it's trying to get something out of its no, I don't know.
Musical inspiration, I guess.
It's odd.
That's the one, baby. Oh man. All right. I was just talking about that riff. I love it. I love it. I actually, you know, before the show and today when I'm doing the research, I went on and watched the 1977 music video back then of there, and it was quite cool. And because I wanted to find out like who did that riff. Was that you or Howard that did that opening riff? And then I looked at the video, and then of course none of it was really synced up because it's the 70s, and who cares? It's just all was little clips of here and there. But then I saw you were playing a Strat with a whammy bar, and I think Howard was playing a Les Paul at that point, was it? And
maybe one, something like that.
So, but you were the one that played that opening Barracuda riff, I can imagine, right?
Yeah. It was a interesting hierarchy of creativity in Heart, and while I was in the band, I was the main
guy,
the idea guy.
Mhm.
which was
Well,
good.
I want to, because a lot of people mistake Hart for being from Seattle, but you actually were kind of, I mean, maybe you had formed in Seattle in that area, but I thought that the first album, all that stuff, a lot of that happened up in Canada, right?
Right, yeah.
So
Uh, there
how did
came
that work
you know,
out?
there came a point in American government and politics where it was just not acceptable to uh, back what was going on here. It was just
We might be at that point again. What are you talking about?
I know, like the Vietnam War, you know,
Mhm.
we just couldn't contribute to that. So we moved up to Canada and uh, yeah, we started the band up there. So we
You were
lived,
living in Vancouver, right?
yeah, Vancouver, BC, lived there for 5 years. And God, uh, it was just a wonderful experience getting out of the United States and being part of a different culture. And I was living with a luthier, so I learned how to work on guitars, and I was just in heaven doing that. And we had been kind of romancing Nancy to come up and join the band for a while. So then she came up, and she and I got together while I was living with that luthier, and it was a real magical time. She and I, that luthier gave me this jar of magic mushrooms bathed in honey, and Nancy and I would take those magic mushrooms, and then we would go to a guitar seminar and see somebody like I'm not remembering the names now, but these great jazz guitar players. We
Which
were
is completely legal to do in Oregon now. They
oh
just passed it on this last election. Mushrooms,
yeah,
anything,
that's great.
like completely. So at this point, and this is something maybe people can take in and go, "How did that all happen?" But so you were dating Nancy, and your brother was dating Anne. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Anne had moved up to be with Mike. Mike was living in this idyllic round house sitting above a little river in North Vancouver. And
Oh,
yeah,
that's a great shot of them. Look at that.
yeah. And so they were an item first. Although the very first time I saw a photograph of Nancy, I went, and
I think we all thought the same thing.
yeah, I
Same
think
thing for me.
so. Once we
For
moved
me,
up,
it was the album cover of Little Queen, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit, But the thing is, so how long did Mike stay in the band before Howard came into the picture? Howard Leese, I'm talking about, of
well,
course.
Mike was always in the band until I left.
Okay, so you guys had a ton, yeah, okay, a ton of there was how many guitar players in that band at that point?
Three,
Okay, okay,
four counting the bass guitarist Steve Fawcett.
yeah.
So Howard and Nance and I needed to learn how to combine our skills and talents in a way that was harmonious and it worked. So heart songs are complex little orchestrations of ingenuity. I say that because Nancy is really a fantastic musician, as
Yeah.
is Howard. And then I'm a lot less academic. I'm a lot more heart and soul, a lot less intellectual. So my contribution to that threesome was really interesting. And like, for instance, we're possibly playing the introduction to Love Alive there, or maybe we're playing Soul of the Sea. But geez, the work that Nancy and I did together, we sat down and spent a lot of time coming up with these parts, and it was a beautiful marriage of musicianship.
And probably such a beautiful period of time with all that creativity and love and
Yeah,
everything.
and that's a really key thing is that Anne and Mike were really in love. Nancy and I were really in love, and it was just a beautiful vibe that we had, and we were conquering. We were all just absolutely set on conquering the world.
Yeah,
Not
well, you didn't.
making our
And you
dreams
did.
come true.
And you definitely did. See, here's the thing that I think a lot of people forget, because at that time, when you think about three guitar player bands, I play in a three guitar player band now with the Alice Cooper lineup. And now they're kind of more common. You'd see, Foo Fighters, and you see a lot of bands that have three guitar players in it. But in those days, it was kind of like, oh, well, Leonard Skinner's the band that has three guitar players. No, but you guys definitely had three different styles, and like you said, covered a base. And I love the way that you explained how you approached the music together, because everybody brought something to the picture, right?
Right. And that's a real interesting point, is that what everybody brought to the picture was the result of their personality. And so we had a really interesting blend of personalities. And Ann and Nance, from when they were very little, were kind of groomed in a way to be entertainers, because their mom and dad would say, "Oh, come on, Ann and Nance, and come on out and show up our friends."
My mom used to do that to me.
Yeah. And so they had that in their blood. And then when all the friends would go, "Oh, you're so good," they thrived on that. And then anybody who was just deeply moved by the Beatles, that was life-changing. And some of us were just moved to the point where that's all we wanted to do. And they were certainly like that. So they both have their personality traits. And then Steve Fossen and I, we went all the way back to where we learned how to play our instruments together. So we were kind of joined at the hip in a way. And Steve is Norwegian and I'm Norwegian. So
there's that connection that we talked about, because I was going to bring it up a little bit later, but yeah, I'm recording this from Stockholm, but you do have Norwegian roots in you, don't you?
Oh, I sure do.
Hello folks, Roxie here. Thanks for watching the video. And if you liked it, hit the subscribe button or one of the videos around me to watch more. If you'd like to, please leave a comment. If you didn't like the video, maybe you'll figure out how to type. Thanks.